Hey, thanks for stopping by. This is Dennis Mann, and today I want to take some time and show you a little presentation that shows you one of the big mysteries in the Kristen Smart case, and specifically it surrounds Buster the Cadaver Dog. And I'm going to point out two different police departments. I'm going to show you how one police department approaches using Buster, and compare that with another where they want nothing to do with Buster. And I don't have the answer for it. I don't. So I'm just going to show you what I know, and I'll let you make up your own mind. Uh, as you know, Kristen was abducted back in 1996, and the sheriff's department back then, they had cadaver dogs of their own come onto campus, and four different cadaver dogs separately, all alerted to Paul Flores' dorm room, which was 128 Santa Lucia Hall. That was 1996. In 2000, FBI agent Jack Schaefer wrote up a search warrant, and it was his opinion that Kristen Smart uh, was buried in Susan Flores' backyard at one time, or that her body was there and maybe have been moved. And he also believed that Kristen's personal effects, stuff that she had on her that's now missing, may be located on that property. And a judge signed that warrant. And the sheriff's department did go to Susan Flores' property on June 20th, 2000. And they looked around, but they never dug up the yard. And that's one of the big mysteries of this case. Why did they not dig up the yard? Under Sheriff Steve Bowles told me that he voted in favor of digging up the yard, but that he was outvoted. He then told a reporter for the San Francisco Chronicle, though that was not true, he said that the search warrant, as written, did not authorize a dig. And the vote taken that day, whether or not to apply for an additional warrant that would authorize the dig. And it was that effort that he voted in favor of, but he was outvoted by his co law enforcement people on site that day. So that's the way things stood for a while. And then I got an email from Jack Schaefer himself, the FBI agent who wrote the warrant. And you can see it right here. Just read it for yourself. He said that the search warrant, as he wrote it up and the judge signed, did in fact authorize a dig. And he said that he had to force that on the sheriff's department because they were not, their heart wasn't in it. And they were afraid that if they dug up the yard and nothing was found, that they would be stuck with the cost of repair. So this is not my words. This is the FBI agent, Jack Schaefer, who wrote the warrant. So that's just the way it is in the real world, you know. This is not television. This is the way things work in the real world. So this is back in 2000. Well, along in 2015 comes David Smallwood. He's the publisher of the California Register, and he's starting to learn the same thing that I'm sharing with you now. And he said, this is nonsense. And so he goes on to YouTube and he finds Buster the Cadaver Dog. And just go to YouTube and type in Buster Cadaver Dog and watch those videos. It'll amaze you. And he contacts Buster's owner as a retired detective from Northern California, a guy named Paul Dostie. And Paul's a great guy. He finds out about Kristen. He goes, absolutely, yeah, you could definitely use my dog. And so Paul and Buster come down to Arroyo Grande, California in 2015. Now, of course, they did not have permission to get on the Flores' property, but they did the next best thing. They got permission from the neighbors, and they took Buster and they walked the property line, the adjacent property line, and Buster alerted, I believe, 4 separate times into the back left corner for human decomposition in the Flores' property. So, of course, we give that to the sheriff's department. They don't do anything with it. Now, I want to show you this lovely young woman here. Her name is Lynsie Eklund from Southern California. Just another tragedy. Some idiot wanted to have sex with her. She said no, and he wouldn't take it, and he killed her. And then he panicked, and he buried her. And for a long time, the cops, they kind of suspected he was the guy, but they couldn't prove it. And eventually the case went cold. And then they decided to give the case to another detective to look at, or sergeant from the Riverside Sheriff's Department, this Sergeant David Douglas. Here he is right here. And he started looking over the case A to Z again. And it was at his suggestion, I believe this is right, that he called up a gentleman by the name of Detective Larry Montgomery from the Orange County District Attorney's Office. He was retired. He said, Larry, listen, you know what you're doing. You spent your whole career working homicides. Can you take a look at this case? And it was Larry that really changed things because he found an old receipt of a credit card bill that blew a hole in the suspect's alibi. And one thing led to another. And watch what they do here. When they're really getting onto something, they think they kind of narrowed down where Lynsie may be. What did they do? Watch this.
Once we figured out that Chris was probably up there, he had access to a location with a tractor, and therefore, if he did kill Lynsie, then maybe the body's there in this area. We bring in the cadaver dogs. The dogs did alert that there is a body in that area, a human body.
Well, what do you know? They reach out to Paul Dostie and say, but we need Buster. Can we have Buster? So Paul gets in his truck from Northern California, drives all the way down to Southern California, and with the help of Buster and Larry, they find Lynsie Eklund. And now at least they're able to give her back to her mother, and she gets a Christian burial like she deserves. This black and white photo is of a U.S. air pilot in the war, World War II, Robert Festermacher Jr. And he was out in the Pacific island of Tarawa. And there was a battle out there, and he was killed defending our country. And his body remained lost to history for about 70 years. And there was an effort out there to try to recover the lost Marines from that island. And they asked for Buster's help. So they flew Buster out to that island. And again, watch this. Watch this.
Sometimes it's an American soldier missing overseas. Buster and Dostie flew with other volunteers to Belgium in 2011 to search a site where an American warplane crashed. Sometimes that work takes the pair to places like abandoned mine shafts in the mountains of California's eastern Sierra region. It's dangerous work.
I'm okay.
And often painstakingly slow.
It's almost like a Pandora's box. You don't know what you're going to find.
Okay, go find it.
Sometimes it's an American soldier missing overseas. Buster and Dostie flew with other volunteers to Belgium in 2011 to search a site where an American warplane crashed in World War II. The Black Lab laid down to alert, then honed in. A volunteer crew dug and found these teeth and other remains of Lieutenant Robert Fenstermacher, an Army Air Corps pilot finally laid to rest at Arlington National Cemetery.
We can finally say to Robert, welcome home. You served your country and family with honor and made us proud. May you now forever rest in peace.
So it begs the question, right? Are you having the same question I'm having? If Buster is good enough for Riverside Sheriff's Department Sergeant David Douglas, and if Buster is good enough for Orange County District Attorney Detective Larry Montgomery, why isn't Buster good enough for Kristen Smart? So it's a fair question, right? It's a fair question. If Buster is good enough for the U.S. Marines to locate their fallen soldiers and to return Robert Festemacher back to his family, who's now buried in Arlington, why isn't Buster good enough for the San Luis Obispo Sheriff's Department? I don't have those answers. Now, I'm humble enough to know that I don't know everything. And there may be a very, very, very good reason why the Sheriff's Department is not investigating Susan Flores' property and digging it up as per that warrant. But if that's true, I make this argument. I say all this to make this point. At the very, very minimum, the sheriff needs to get on the phone and call Stan and Denise. Or better yet, get in a car and drive up to their house and sit across from at their kitchen table and say, Stan and Denise, we're not going to go dig up Susan Flores' yard, and here are the reasons why. Reason 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Spell it out for them. Because I talked to Mrs. Smart. She still has no idea. The best she's ever heard was, well, we've cleared that property. Well, that's not good enough. And the reason why I say that is this. Look at this. Here's an email from FBI agent Jack Schaefer. He's the person for the FBI that wrote the search warrant. He believes that Kristen was either buried in that property one time and moved, or that her body is still there. And he also believes that some of her personal effects, such as her keys or the other earring, may still be buried in that backyard. Now, the sheriff's department, to their credit, they showed up at that yard on January 20th of 2000. They looked around, but they never dug up the yard, and they walked off. Under Sheriff Steve Bolts told me that they took a vote that day whether or not they should dig up the yard. He said, Dennis, I voted in favor of it, but I got outvoted. Right? And I told that to the San Francisco Chronicle. They were doing a story on it, and there was a reporter named Stacy Finns. So she has a meeting with Steve Bolts. And he said, no, Dennis got it all wrong. Dennis got it wrong. He told the reporter, said, Stacy, the first warrant did not authorize a dig. The vote that we took that day was whether or not we should apply for a second search warrant that would authorize a dig. But then watch what happens. I get an email from the FBI agent who wrote the warrant. Read it for yourself, and you tell me. So here we are, 21 years later. We've got a search warrant that authorized the sheriff's department to dig, to look for Kristen, to look for her remains, and to look for her personal effects. To this day, that's never been done. It's never been done. And then you've seen Buster the Cadaver Dog, and you know that the sheriff's department down in Riverside County, Riverside, California, and Orange County, they love Buster. But the sheriff's department here in San Luis, they won't use them. They won't utilize them. And I don't know the reason why. 21 years later. Okay, I'm just sharing with you guys what I know. And if this strikes you anyway, just please tell your friends to watch this. Thank you so much, everyone. Hi, everybody. Thanks again for stopping by. I want to share with you one of the big mysteries of the Kristen Smart case, and it has to center around Buster, the Cadaver Dog, and how different police departments approach using this vital tool in the search for missing people. I want to show you the contrast how the Riverside, California, and Orange County law enforcement agencies approach Buster the Cadaver Dog and compare that to the San Luis Obispo Sheriff's Department. And they're basically, well, they don't want to have anything to do with Buster. So I'm going to show you a couple examples, and I'm just going to let you make up your own mind because I can't figure it out. I just can't figure it out. But anyway, just to for the students who are just learning about Kristen's case, just very briefly, when she was abducted back in 1996, last being seen with Paul Flores and Tim Davis and Cheryl Anderson, um, right by the campus of Cal Poly. But Paul was last seen at Grand and Perimeter with Kristen. All right. Uh,